Welcome to the Speak Her podcast with your host, Camille Essick, the podcast where creators and innovators connect. Let's get started.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Speaker Podcast. I'm your host, Camille Essick. If you haven't done so, please be sure to hit that notification bell and subscribe. I do have new music out there. It's on Tidal, and also new episodes are streaming across all various platforms such as iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Pandora. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, I am not a licensed psychologist, psychotherapist, or counselor. So I'm going to put that disclaimer out there first, but these are conversations that I feel that are very necessary. Now, be sure to hit that notification bell and subscribe, and let's hop right into it. Now, in the last episode, we talked about trauma and survival. We talked about what happens when strength becomes, an expectation and how survival responses can feel like a personality. But today, I want to move into something that's a little more relational, a little more communal, and if I'm honest, a little more complicated. Because healing does not happen in isolation, identity does not come in the form of isolation, and self-esteem, it definitely does not come in the form of isolation. And what it is more than anything, it's shaped in relationship. It's shaped in family, in friendship, in community, in sisterhood, and proximity to other women, and even in unspoken rules that we absorb about what it means to belong. So, right now, during this episode, we're talking about community and comparison. Now, I know it's not just about how we support one another, but how we measure ourselves around each other, how we interpret each other, how we compete sometimes silently, how we perform in belonging, and how now all of that can affect the way Black women, how we as Black women see ourselves, because community can be healing, but community can also become a place, like a mirror that distorts you depending on what that mirror has been taught to value. Now we've talked about what happens inside of us. Now we need to talk what happens between us, because some of the deepest questions around self-esteem are not just what happened to me, um, you know, um, what did I do? How did I survive that? What did I survive? Sometimes it's the deep question, who did I become in order to belong? Now, if you have your pen and paper, be sure to write this down. Community can hold you or shape your insecurities. Now, community is one of the first places we learn ourselves. Before we have polished language for identity, we're already beginning to learn what gets praised, what gets corrected, what gets attention, what gets ignored, what kind of woman is considered good, what kind of woman is considered too much, what kind of woman is considered desirable, and what kind of woman is considered difficult. And for Black women, community carries double weight because it does more than just socialize us. It protects us. It teaches us how to survive. It teaches us how to read people, how to move, how to discern tone, and how to adapt. And guess what? That matters. The same place that protects you can also shape your insecurities if the values inside that community are rooted in scarcity, fear, comparison, image management, competition for validation, proximity to what is seen as replaceable, desirable, or even successful. So now belonging is no longer just about connection, it becomes about calibration, how to be present, how to fit, how not to stand out the wrong way, how not to threaten anybody, how not to be dismissed, how not to be left out. Now, that begins shaping self esteem in quiet ways, because now your worth is not just something you feel internally, it becomes something you are constantly reading through the room. Okay, ladies, point number two, silence comparison does not always look like jealousy. Now, let's go deeper here. When people hear comparison, they usually think of envy in a very obvious way. But comparison is often much quieter than that. Sometimes comparison sounds like, I should be further along by now. Why does it seem easier for her? Maybe I need to become more like that. Maybe what I naturally thought I am is not enough. Maybe I need to soften this. Maybe I need to hide that. Maybe I need to present myself differently to be received. That is comparison too. Not loud jealousy, not obvious resentment, but internal measuring. And internal measuring is exhausting because it keeps you disconnected from yourself. Now, instead of asking, what is true for me? Start asking yourself, what is working for everybody else? And for Black women, that can get especially complicated because so many of us are carrying pressure and pain while trying to appear composed. So what happens? We compare our we compare our internal lives to other people's external presentation, meaning we compare ourselves to the behind the scenes of their public version, our exhaustion to their polished self, our confusion to their confidence, our process to their apparent arrival. And the danger of that is not just insecurity, the danger is misinterpretation because you start believing that everybody else is more secure, more settled, more chosen, more affirmed, and more ahead than you are. And in reality, many women are also performing steadiness while privately wrestling with their own questions. Point three, scarcity changes how people relate to each other. Now, this part matters because we cannot talk honestly about community without talking about scarcity. Scarcity changes people. When opportunities feel limited, when affirmation feels limited, when visibility feels limited, when love feels limited, when resources feel limited, people start relating to each other from lack. When people relate from lack, community can become strained. Now, support may still exist, but it may be mixed with tension. Celebration can exist, but it may be mixed with comparison. Love may still exist, but it can be mixed with competition. Not always because people are cruel, sometimes because they're conditioned. Now, because if you have learned that there are only a few seats at the table, then someone else's visibility can feel like your disappearance. And if you've learned that only certain women get chosen, then other women's ease can feel like your rejection. If you've learned that being seen is rare, then somebody else being affirmed can press on every place in you that feels unseen. And that's not just pettiness, that's also unhealed scarcity. And if we do not name that honestly, we will keep reducing complicated emotions and those realities to simple support women statements without ever asking why support can feel so hard in insecure environments. Point four, respectability, presentation, and the performance of womanhood. Now, ladies, my sisters, my girls, now let's talk about presentation. Because in many Black communities, especially for women, presentation has never been just aesthetic, like pretty girl privilege. It has been tied to safety, to dignity, to respectability, to how your family is perceived, to whether or not you're given the benefit of the doubt. So, from an early age, many Black women are taught some version of carry yourself well, don't embarrass yourself, don't be loud, don't be sloppy, don't give people a reason, look presentable, speak properly, act like you have some sense. And again, some of that comes from care, some of that comes from survival, some of that comes from wanting Black girls and Black women to be protected in a world that has already prepared them to be mistreated and misread. But the psychological cost is real because over time, womanhood can feel like a performance. You're not just being yourself, but you're managing perception, managing tone, managing body language, managing facial expression. Come on, you've all heard of RBF, right? Managing appearance, managing language, managing how much of yourself is acceptable in the room. And when that becomes normal, self esteem gets complicated because now confidence is not just about feeling good in your own skin, it becomes attached to how well you can manage what others think of your skin, your voice, your choices, your life. That becomes very fragile in a sense of peace because why? In any environment that does not affirm your performance can destabilize your sense of self. If you're taking notes, we're on point number 5. Social media did not create comparison, it accelerated it. Now, ladies, let's be honest about social media too. Social media did not invent comparison, it amplified it. Now, the room is never just your family, your city, your church, your school, your circle, or even your sorority chapter or your church. Now, the room is everywhere, it's global. You can wake up and then immediately be exposed to someone's engagement, someone's body transformation, someone's business growth, someone's soft life, someone's healing language, somebody's luxury, somebody's spiritual clarity, somebody's new home, somebody's new confidence, somebody's new man. Now, if you're not anchored, all of that can start to feel like a daily referendum on your own life. Not because what they're doing is wrong, but because constant exposure to curated visibility can distort your internal timing. In other words, it makes that internal clock go bananas. Now you start asking, am I behind? Am I doing enough? Should I be somewhere else by now? Why doesn't my life feel like that? Why does everyone else seem to be more certain, more confident, more ahead? And the danger is this: comparison makes you abandon your own context. You stop remembering what you survived, what season you're in, what your needs are, what your pace is, and what healing is asking for you or of you. And once you lose your own context, it becomes very easy to judge yourself unfairly. Point 6. What happens when belonging costs yourself? Now, this is the deepest part of the episode for me. Sometimes what we call belonging is actually self abandonment. You learn how to stay connected by minimizing your needs, shrinking your personality, muting your opinions, downplaying your success, overstating your strength, performing ease when you feel insecure, drained, or exhausted, performing agreement when you feel disconnected. And if you do that too long, you can look deeply connected on the outside while feeling profoundly unseen on the inside. Because people may love the version of you that knows how to fit, but what about the version of you that tells the truth? The version of you that is still growing, the version of you that is tired, the version of you that doesn't want to compete or perform, the version of you that wants to be held, not just admired. This is where self esteem and community collide. Because if your belonging depends on hiding, performing, constantly adjusting, then your community, it may be reinforcing insecurity more than it's healing it. And that's the hard truth. So I want you to sit with this question, write these down. You can circle back to it later or rewind. In what spaces do I feel most aware of myself? Where do I feel like I have to perform to belong? Who am I around women when I feel fully secure? Who I who I become when I feel compared, evaluated, or unseen? And here's another question. Have I confused connection with performance? Have I mistaken visibility for worth? And maybe this is the deepest question. What has it cost me to belong in certain spaces? Community should not make you disappear. Real community should not require self erasure. It should not require constant comparison. It should not require emotional shape shifting to stay accepted. The right spaces will make you feel like you become smaller than to remain loved. They will not punish your becoming. They will not resent your growth. They will not reduce you to your usefulness, your image, or your performance. And healing may require more learning how to love yourself privately. I do want to add this. It may also require finding spaces where your nervous system does not feel like it has to, compete to belong. Because why? Self esteem is not just internal work. Sometimes it's relational repair. Sometimes it's environmental honesty. Sometimes it's learning that the room that you're in is shaping how you feel about yourself. And once you know that, you can choose differently. So, in closing, community can heal, but it can also expose. It can reveal what you believe about yourself, what you fear about being seen, what you think you must do to stay connected. And the goal is not isolation, the goal is discernment, to know the difference between spaces that nourish you and spaces that quietly train you to betray yourself. So, in the next episode, we're going to go deeper into faith, the Black church, and identity. Because for many women, church has been refuge, formation, language, discipline, and sometimes pressure. And we need to talk about all of it honestly. And I'll meet you there. Now, if you got something from this episode, be sure to hit that notification bell and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Speak Her podcast. Be sure to follow Camille on Instagram at camille.essick, Facebook at the Speak Her podcast, or www.camilleessick.com.
Wanna hear what you wanna talk, what you get in the car and drive, what you 75. Listen, love the Speak Her podcast. Good is a vibe in your ear. It's the Speak Her podcast. Can we be your ear candy? Describe the feeling. Listen, love the Speak